Hey everybody, Joey here to talk to you about a very specific light that I've used on a variety of projects in the past, and that is the Astera Titan tube. Now, last year I spoke a little bit about the Hydra panel. This is another one of Astera's products, which had a lot of the same functionality and UI of the Titan tubes, which I've used on more professional film sets. This was in a smaller form factor, a little bit more inexpensive, yet you still have the same effects, controls, and the app stuff that makes the Astera stuff such a pleasure to work with. And after that review, I requested a loaner unit of the tube so that I can play with this a little bit more intimately and share with you. And Astera actually ended up sending me an entire case with a bunch of accessories, the power box, and of course, 8 of the Astera Titan tube lights. I'll dive much deeper into that case in just a little bit, but first, what the heck is a Titan tube light? Well, quite simply, it's an LED tube light, but it's sort of the top of the line for the tube lights. Like I said, I've used these on professional productions as they've come in rental packages, whether I've been a gaffer, a lighting technician, or doing cinematography work. These lights have sort of always been around. I've played with them on those days that I've been on set, but I've never actually had one in my possession to really mess around with. These things can do a lot. They have a lot of functionality and a lot of capability to them. And one of the things I think really help them stand out is that they can be integrated as production design. They can be used on the front side of the camera, being integrated into walls, shooting through diffusion, or just be fluorescence. Or for a lot of music videos, you can just stand them right up and make a lot of different effects and designs and really up your visual aesthetic when it comes to that genre. Now, I am no production designer, I am a cinematographer, so I can't really speak on the production design side of it as deeply as I would like to, but I can talk about how I've used these two light sets. Quite specifically, this kind of grody garage that I'm in right now. This is all lit with Astera Titan tubes. I have 3 in front of me that I've rigged up on a C-stand with an Apple box. I've screwed in some female plates and used some of the accessories that it comes with to mount 3 tubes, full blast, shooting daylight through a silk to make them just one giant soft source that sort of just washes over me as a key light. On my right side here, I have 1 tube standing up on one of these little tripod legs that it comes with in the case, and that is giving me just a little bit of fill on this side. Above me, I have a light just shooting almost straight above me on the tabletop just to fill out the top side. Over here, I have, as a piece of set design, a fluorescent light, or a fluorescent light, sort of a garage fluorescent light that I've set to rainbow. It's not, that rainbow is not realistic for a garage, but this is just to show you some of the little effects. And then these 2 I have on the tabletop here. I had this set to just I think just a blue ethereal pulse. And then I have this one doing one of the fire effects, just red and orange sort of cycling through that. And you'll get a much better look at this when I turn these other lights off and you can see what's going on there. So again, this is all Asteras that I'm using as talent light, fill light, production design, and then these 2 just to show you what they can do. Okay, so I've turned off the main key light here, that one that's just giving me a nice big wash, and I've just kept on these production design lights so you can get a better view at the different coloring that's happening here. You get the red and the orange, you get the rainbow, hopefully it's not being blown out too much, and then again, that blue light, and all customizable within the app. But first, before we go any further, I just want to talk about the price, because I think the price is an important part to mention, because Astera Titan tubes are probably one of the more expensive tube lights out there. There are a lot of competitors now making different variations of lights. A lot of them have a lot less functionality, and you're paying less for that. You're paying about $850 per light, per Titan tube. That entire case of the 8 is about $8,000. I want to say a hair over $8,000 because of the power box, because of the accessories that come with it, and because of what the case can actually do, which we'll get into that. So that's enough preamble. Let's talk about the light that comes out of the light. There are many different kinds of LED tubes. Some are bicolor. There are some that are RGB. Some are RGBW. These are actually RGB plus mint plus amber. So you have a full wide range of RGB colors. The CCT range, which is the correlated color temperature range in Kelvin, ranges much wider than your typical bicolor. Normally, those things run about 2200 to 6500 Kelvin. This one actually ranges from 1750 to 20,000 Kelvin, giving you a much wider range there. And the light quality looks nice. There are a lot of people out there doing tests, doing meters and charts, showing you how the color, the tints don't really change as you sort of cycle through all these different modes, where a lot of the cheaper lights start to sort of veer out into unruly green territory. I've used these lights. I've used very old versions of this light, but very old. It's been through the ringer, and they all still look great, and they still look very consistent from light to light. I have used a lot of more inexpensive, less expensive LED lights, and I can notice the green in them. I can notice that over time they start to sort of fade out. This isn't scientific. I haven't tested this, but I have noticed changes in those lights over time. And even when you put some lights, identical lights of those side by side, you can get some differentials in there. These lights, I've never had that problem. Again, this is a very unscientific test, but just from my eye, these things have always looked really nice. Now from the app, it's very similar to that Hydra panel that I reviewed last year. You have granular control over all the different patterns and effects. This fire pattern here, I can make these 2 different colors, any color I want within the RGB mint amber spectrum. I can change the speed. I can make it strobe if I wanted to. I could link these things up and make sync them up as one light, so they're both doing the same thing. I can make them a flow state, and so a pattern that starts here can go through here and go to the next one, and so I can sort of link these things together and create one big cell, one big pattern. You can do a number of things within the groups within the app and get your control that way. And since we're talking about connecting, let's go through all the different ways that you can connect to these lights, because these things are very DMX friendly, DMX ready. The case there has a DMX input, which then sends signals through the power cables. You can do a wired DMX setup, and so that's the way I've done it in the past on sets, where there'd be a DMX person there controlling those lights, getting that signal, making the groups themselves, and then doing things all through the DMX, the very robust DMX control. You can do that. You can get an Astera box and go wirelessly through the DMX, so you can send that stuff through the DMX or ArtNet. Send it wirelessly and get your control that way. Again, I haven't had a hands-on with either of that stuff. I really have very limited experience doing DMX myself. It's a rabbit hole that I do want to go down, and I was trying to get into that before doing this video, before having to send these lights back, but I just couldn't justify the cost to get the DMX gear, being that I'm so uneducated on that front yet. And so hopefully in the future I will dive more into DMX and working that stuff. So what I've been doing is the third option, which is using it as a Bluetooth connection. Now you use what's called a Bluetooth bridge. If you have that Astera box, which I do not, it's another add-on. It's like $450, but it's basically a little box that interfaces with either the DMX or your Bluetooth app, and it connects to all the lights wirelessly. And so you're doing what's called a Bluetooth bridge. You're making that box the bridge that links up your app to all the lights. If you don't have that, you can designate one of these lights to become the Bluetooth bridge, and that's what I've been doing. I take one light and I say, this is my Bluetooth bridge. This thing needs to stay on because my phone is talking to this, and this thing is talking to all the lights. And so I just did a music video shoot over the weekend using these lights, and we had 4 lights set up to simulate police car action. So there's a band playing. This scene specifically needed a lot of police lights. And so I set one light up, I put it to 0%, so it would just last all day, but it kept it on to become my Bluetooth bridge. And then I linked up 2 lights and 2 lights. I made 2 groups so that they had different patterns, and made the police siren look with the strobing lights. And that is the easiest, most cost-effective way to do it. However, Bluetooth is Bluetooth, and I had a lot of problems. I was using both my iPad and my phone to connect to the Bluetooth, and I was just losing connections like crazy. I think it was like every time I turned the screen off, I would lose connection. So I just try to keep my screen on, but still every now and then I just lose the bridge, come back, I have to wait a second for it to pop back on. The director would yell, "Cut, can you turn the lights off?" And I'd be sitting there waiting for the app to communicate back in with the bridge, to communicate back with the lights, and then everything would come back on. And that coming back on was seamless. It would jump right back into the sets that I had, but having that connection lose time and time again was just a little wonky. And the last way you can control these things is just manually. There's a very dead simple set of buttons on here. You get your menu, which you rarely use, but really it's all about these 2 buttons. You got this like brightness, intensity, and then a little paint icon, which then allows you to change your color temperatures, change your hues, and go through and really customize your light that way and turn it on. So let's talk a little bit about the battery management, because I have a lot of battery anxiety when it comes to peripherals, especially when I don't get any information on the battery. You know, cameras have 3 bars that go down, or 3 or 4 bars that go down, right? That's a little bit of information. It still makes me anxious. I tend to overpack batteries, or I tend to rely on wall plugs. These things have a battery system that is, when you go into intensity, it'll tell you. These lights will last you about 5 hours at this 100% intensity. And so that's a good chunk of the day, especially at 100%. And I'm using 100% for these key lights here. When you have a light on camera, you're rarely using 100%. That's at like 30, and it's not doing great with whatever exposure you have the camera at. So you generally have these things down pretty low when they are on camera, which means you're gonna be lasting a long chunk of the day. And you get that information here. It'll tell you how long this is gonna last you. And also you can adjust your light to last how long you want it to. So let's say we're working on a set where I need to put this into behind a diffusion panel on a spaceship, and it needs to sort of pulse, and it needs to last all day long. Let's say it's a 10-hour shoot. We can't have access to these lights after I set it. And so I can go in here and jump down below the intensity and say, okay, I need this light to last 12 hours. I can set it to 12 hours, put it up there, and then be assured that it's gonna be, whatever intensity it has set itself at, it will last 12 hours for that. And I tested this twice. I did 2 different versions of this with different patterns, different light qualities, and both times the light actually ran over about an hour. So I think I had one set to 6 hours, one set to 12 hours. It lasted about 7 and 13, 14 hours. So it was inaccurate, but in a good way. I'd rather it be a little bit conservative and give you more light for longer than going backwards, because that could be an issue if your light is telling you have 5 hours, and in fact, you only have 3.5 hours. So the battery stuff was great on these. It really gives me a good peace of mind when I'm putting these on set. And putting it on a charging case there, I get a full charge in about, I think I roughed it out about like 3 hours. And so, you know, if you do have these things pretty mobile, a lunch break, an hour lunch break, you can pop these things in and get a good chunk of juice back into your unit before the next call time. Let's go ahead and jump into the case itself, that big gaffing case of all the accessories, and I'll show you a little bit about how you rig these things up and what comes in that case. Okay, so here's the full case. I just had to dismantle all of the lights that I was using to light the garage, and so now it's just being used by, the lighting is just garage lights, so it looks pretty bad. But let's just focus on this case here. You can see I have the 4 and 4 on the top and the bottom. You know, be very careful because this top becomes very heavy with these 4 lights in here. So if you start pulling lights from the bottom, which I did earlier, it starts to tip from the back. But here's the power box. Here are the lights. The accessories are all here. It comes sort of nested. And let's go through all that of what is supplied. So first, let's look at the lamp here. The lamps have these screw holes on either side of the lighting unit. These are smaller than your 1/4 inch, than your traditional camera 1/4 inch. They're really made for 2 things. They're made for these little loops. You can screw in these loops and hang them from wires, which I did on the back of the set above the workbench. And they also fit these legs. So those are 2 of the pieces that come with this unit. I really like using these, either just I kind of have them always set on, regardless of what I'm using these lamps for. They're great just to put on and stage, so you're ready to use them when you're needed. So you got 8 of those legs, you got 16 of these hoops, and then you have these little clamps that clamp on to the light. And then again, you have screws here. So you have 2 of these smaller versions that you can put the things like the loops onto, which is actually how I did it. I had these clamps, I had 2 of these clamps holding onto the light. Each one had a loop, and then it was hanging from the top. Or you can use the middle, which is a 1/4 inch, and attach something like these standard plugs here. So you got your 1/4 inches, you can screw onto there and attach to a fixture. That's what I did for the music video that I shot. I had these attached to C-stands, which then were holding the lights. Or you can screw this on using the 1/2 inch on the other side. So a lot of little options here. If you're familiar with hardware in this terms, like you'll figure out many different ways to rig these things to stuff. You can also buy additional accessories or plates that you can attach these clamps onto. And then you can make these into like configurations like diamonds or triangles, or just make the light sort of angle out in different ways. And so you can play around in that regards. And then you have these little locks for the clips, for the clamps. Once the clamp goes on, you can put these little pins through there and lock it up. And then you have these little plugs for the power hole on the lamps. These things are rated IP65, which is basically gives a little bit of weatherproofing when you put these on. When you put this on and cover that power hole, you can get these a little wet. They can be sprayed with water. They're completely, they're completely protected from dust, and so there's a little bit of weatherproofing, especially when you put this on. The lamps feel sturdy. They, I wouldn't throw these down the stairs, but I think physically they don't feel like they're going to bust. And from a weather standpoint, they are all pretty well protected. And then over here you have your massive power box that comes with this kit here. This is the Titan power box. You got your Ethernet for your ArtNet and your DMX in, your DMX out. These are all 5-pin DMXs. Power in, power out. Then it comes with a power cable. And then on the side here, you got all of your, you got 10 outputs for that power. And so you can charge 10 tubes if you want. This case comes with 8, so I have 8 tubes, 8 cables set up with the tubes. And then to charge them, you simply plug in the power box into your wall outlet. And now to charge my cameras overnight, I simply plug these in here. And I get a little bit of a readout on the menu system of what I have, 94%, 82%, 98%, and I can see my progress throughout the day. So there you have it, the Astera Titan tube. The light that I've been playing with for years and years on set, but I've only just recently gotten my hands on to give you a full, nice video to show you what these things are capable of and what they are about. Again, follow me on Instagram at HDJoey, and I will post some more examples of these clips. And I will see you next time on the light zone, on Tested, the lighting corner. Light magic is used. Lighten up with Joey. Lighten up, comma Joey. There it is. Lighten up, Joey.